Hello there and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we got another session with Mister, and we are back inside because it's freezing outside. Just the way it is this time of years. Instead of going for a walk, you might see it in frame already. We're going for a walk in a different way. Christmas came early for Kate and I. We got ourselves a dog pacer instead of old human treadmill. And so if you've been following the social media, you'll see that Mister has been on a treadmill a lot, but it's that old human one. So context, one thing is different, everything is different. A newer type of treadmill in a different location than what he's used to. There's more of an incline set up on this one. So there's just a lot of different. The open front compared to having the tower, the console stand for the humans right in the middle there. Just lots of difference. So part of this is just getting him acclimated to the new treadmill, but I'm also using this video as a bit of a tutorial, not just for Mister and his owners, but for anyone that we can refer to for teaching a dog about treadmill. Now, big disclaimer about treadmills in general. They are a great way to physically exercise a dog, especially, as I mentioned, why we're doing it this way. It's freezing outside. And so, too cold for this little guy, even in his little sweater and all of that. So it's a good placeholder, a good stand-in for inclement weather or injury on the human's part or something like that. The thing about treadmills is for most dogs in general, but especially you have a smart guy like this, the mental exercise that goes on and figuring out this new thing doesn't last very long, which means it quickly becomes a purely physical exercise kind of tool, which valuable for some dogs, just to get that edge off. Yet, if you rely on it as a complete placeholder for all walks forever, then you're just training super athletes, which means the dog's gonna have to be on the treadmill longer and longer and longer still to get the same effect of tiredness and calmness and fulfillment for dogs, so that you can maybe try to hold true to that old adage, which I don't like so much, but a tired dog is a good dog. Not very true, because it gets harder and harder to make that tired dog when it's just a physical thing. So with that disclaimer out of the way, again, I'm going to treat this almost like a tutorial for teaching treadmill for the first time.
Did you potty him?
Probably not picked up on camera, but even though we're doing this video shortly after the general potty break, one big tip that I kind of took for granted because of that, potty the dog. So you know what, we're gonna pause and go for a quick potty break just to make sure. And we're back. Quick, successful potty break. 20 degrees outside, so yeah, it's freezing. But on to the actual proper tutorial. First step, make sure our dog knows some basic obedience. We have a way to communicate, they understand leash pressure. Yes, good, no, it all makes sense. Having food that they like and will focus for, and be near the treadmill. Now, while I mentioned this is a brand new thing, during that intro, we were right next to the treadmill and Mister didn't really care. Some dogs, they care about this random new object in the house or the room or what have you. And so that might mean you're just doing basic obedience near it. Sit, yes. Sit, yes. Down, yes. Down, yes. And as I just did in those last couple repetitions, you'll release the dog in the direction of the treadmill so that they're approaching it, getting a reward. Down, yes, and if they'll do it, down, yes. You can control a sort of retreat or just more space from the treadmill. But do that as much as you need to. Reps, closer, further, getting up to it. Maybe, I'm not sure if this is gonna be in frame or not. Place, yes. Send them to bed or place a couple of times. Place, yes. Because the treadmill is effectively gonna be the same as place, at least in the beginning. So once you got the obedience going on around the floor, set them up. I would definitely name it something else than place though. Tread, get them up, yes, make them off. Personal preference definitely will take over. I do like having dogs always enter from the back. Tread. And then I'll even have my fingers in the front here, kind of facing them the way that I want before I mark the yes, turn them back around and exit off the back. Especially with human treadmills, that's kind of the only way you can do it. With the dog treadmills, it's open in the front, so maybe it's a good, convenient way to get the dogs off of the treadmill once we're all done with it is to continue through the front. The concern about that is that some dogs get in their head like I can just run through it, and so they will, while running, I know you're eager to go, while walking and using the treadmill, they're gonna just go faster and walk themselves off and then just hang out, depending on the length of the leash that you have available for them on to secure them, so to speak, to the treadmill. So again, starting from the back, tread, bring them up. You might bring them all the way up to the position. Yes. And exit the back. Tread. Yes. I have them walking partway up the treadmill. For some dogs, it might be just the very first steps. Tread. Yes. Tread. Yes. And I did that on purpose, facing them the wrong way. Progress over perfection. If you get 2 paws on the treadmill and that's it, reward that and gradually build up to where they're walking up and facing the right way, anticipating it, and then bring them back. And obviously with Mr. here, eagerly trying to get back up there, you might only do 1 or 2 reps of getting on the tread like a place command, and then you come back to down, yes, heel, no, that was sloppy, heel, yes. Back to some basic obedience that they're familiar with, that they enjoy, and you can use that as a pick-me-up if that was a little scary for some dogs. But once you get the quick reps going and they're really enjoying it, they're not showing much issue with the tread, then we go again, but we kind of move on as if we're doing week 3 in the program. Tread. Good. Good. Yes. And we just keep them there for a little bit longer. We don't have to worry too much about a ton of duration at this point, and definitely not worry too much about distractions in of themselves, as far as dancing around, tossing treats and all that jazz. Not at the moment. Down. Yes. Come on. Tread. Good. Good. Depending on what kind of bar you have to contend with, dog treadmill, human treadmill, doesn't really matter. You might get used to figuring out how you want to, if he were running, how do I want to position myself or get around those bars so I can deliver food down at his level where he's going to be while running. Yes. Now, it took too long, he turned around. No biggie. But they're used to standing there. They're used to being there for some period of time. And now, and all the while, I should have mentioned this, we haven't even turned on the treadmill. I think I got the main power supply turned on. But now I will turn on the treadmill when we're not on there. I thought I will turn on the treadmill. There we go. All I want is for him to hear and maybe even see that the belt is running. Yes, thank you for the dramatic looking there. Good job, mister. And then we turn it off. Yes. And maybe it's counter conditioning. As soon as there's an awareness, mark the yes for on and or off. And then there might be some more obedience. Sit, yes, sit, yes. Down, yes. And you'll notice all the obedience is just quick release. I'm not doing much holding here because, thank you. We just want to have fun. We want to make it quick and active. There's a lot of reward involved. And what's happening is just we're using the classical conditioning of this part of the practice to connect and tie to the treadmill. Like, hey, this is a fun and exciting and rewarding thing too, even though the reward may not be directly on the treadmill all the time. Come on. So you might do that a couple of times. Have it turned on. It's running, yes. While running, down, yes. Sit, yes. I'm only doing like 2-3 repetitions each time out here on the floor, but do as many as you feel like you need. And turn it off. Yes. Oh boy. Now, Mr. Tread. Good. We get him on. We turn it on. And keep it at the lowest setting, which is usually just 0.5 miles an hour. And it can be as quick as that. Yes. Come on, come on, come on. You turn it on. They start moving, you mark the yes, they get the food, you turn it off, you mark the yes, you get them off. You could use good instead of yes while they're on that if you wanted to. Now, he's familiar with treadmills, so there was no reaction to that. It was just like, oh, my feet are moving, let's go. He's used to it. Some dogs straight up are like that. He actually kind of was the first time I did it. Some dogs, they like drop to the ground like it's falling out from underneath them. So be prepared to have some leash pressure. Mister, tread. Be prepared. So I got a short leash here. He can't run off the front. If he tries to move off the front, he did when I did the first gesture, there's a little bit of pressure there. I can keep him there. But at the same time, you see I've got a leash hanging here. This is for when they're all used to it. I'm gonna keep that leash in my hand so that I can move him and change the angle depending on which way he might try to escape this thing from. So I'm gonna turn it on. Good. And it might be like that last repetition, quick, on and off, on and off. He gets on, he gets off. I might do some obedience on the floor. But if I can keep him walking, then I can give him a handful of treats. I'll turn it off. Yes. Exit out the back. You get some food. And then maybe we do some more basic obedience. Again, just making it quick and fun and uplifting. Down. Yes. Down. Yes. Sit. Yes. Tread. Yes. Maybe there's some reps where it's like that. If you get a dog that starts to show hesitancy, which Mister's not doing at all for me right now, but hesitancy to get on the treadmill, then you might have to go back even though you're running it for a few seconds. Tread. Yes. Just a quick on and off of the treadmill, not turning it on, not running it. It's not moving at all. Tread. Yes. That way they can start to get in their head, okay, every time you ask me to go to the tread, I don't have to amp myself up because it's gonna be moving under me, and that's still scary. Not to Mister. He's a big old tough little guy. So, once they get more and more used to it, we get them on, we turn it on, and we get them running. Walking. Crawling. And then, let's assume we're kind of at the stage where, as Mister is, quite comfortable with it all. What speed should we go? 1/2 mile an hour is how most of treadmills will default to as a starting, and that's as low as it goes. But you can see how he's walking, keeping pace a little bit, but then he'll stop and just kind of hang out. And he's not falling behind because he can't keep up. He's just bored. He's not stimulated enough. He's crawling up the front, kind of peeking around the edge there. So this is just too slow. We can turn it up for some dogs. Depending on the type of treadmill you have, by the way, sometimes they can make a little bit of noise as the motor's amping up and to allow it to go faster. And we have to go back and do counter conditioning for that. I'm gonna go to 0.7. And I'm finding out, or a little bit of testing earlier, I was just too excited to pay attention. But this new treadmill doesn't get too noisy as we ramp up the speed. It was quiet to begin with. So almost every time I press the button, there is an audible click there. It's probably not going to come up on the microphone. But every time I press, I'll give them a treat. We're up to 1 mile an hour, 1.1, 1.2. This audible click for some dogs can be a little scary, but they can also associate every time you reach over and touch the thing, it gets faster. And that's a little scary. We can balance that out a little bit with the food in between. 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9. 2 miles an hour. Now, as I've been speeding up from 0.5 now up to 2 miles, you can kind of see his head drop a little bit lower in line with the spine. Sometimes almost looking down where his feet are, trying to pay attention. He is dropping back a little bit, but it doesn't take much before he picks up his pace and catches back up to where I kind of want him to be, roughly even with these bars. And all the while, you can just periodically keep giving him some food. As I mentioned at the start, the incline that he's running at, I'm not sure what the percentage of that is. It's 9% is what I'm hearing. It's more than what he's used to. It might have been like a 1 or even 0 incline on the human treadmill that we've been using. It has the option, but we just never used it. Because 2 miles an hour on that treadmill is almost too slow for him. But I think the incline is doing enough to balance that out that we can stick at 2 here. But it's a nice even tick, 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 tick that you can hear with every footstep, every paw print. We don't necessarily, with treadmills, want to make them run. The faster we can go at a walking pace, a walking gait, so it's just a steady tick, 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 tick that you can hear, as opposed to the tick, to the tick, to the tick, as they're kind of galloping and working their way up in the different gaits. Just because you got to really watch it. I'm not going to do it with Mr. Maybe ever, but for sure not in this video, that if they trip, if they start to get tired, well, there's the emergency clip that you can add to it, but you just got to make sure it's set to a particular space that it will break off before they hit the end of the stationary, the fixed leash, which I'll talk about that in a moment. Just for safety's sake. In my opinion, I would say a slat mill might be better if we want to get our dogs really running. One of these days we'll get one, and then there will be another video about that. I myself don't have much experience with slat mills, so I've got to learn a little bit before I can even get that video going. But yeah, once they're going, we're just watching. He's kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit in the position. Like he's fallen back a little bit, but he's picked in and back up. For the most part, we never want to keep the dogs on the treadmill unsupervised, because if you were falling back and falling back, are you do you know English? I feel like if you really did, you wouldn't be here. Anyways, that was him getting kind of bored. For the most part, as he has it set up, I said it was lowered, but from the start, but it's not completely flat with his spine. He's not completely in the zone. He could go faster. We've been doing like 3 miles an hour on the other treadmill upstairs. So let's get this up to 2.5. I don't want to force him to go too fast for too long just for the sake of the video, but knowing that he can take it a little bit, knowing that I'm right here to shut it off or at least turn it down if I need to. He's falling back, but because he's looking around, he's not trying to keep up. This isn't too fast yet. Again, if he looked similar to this but kept falling back, puts lots of effort to catch up but falls back, put lots of effort to catch up and then falls back, that's what it would kind of look like if we were going too fast. Also, for the sake of this video, it might take a while at this rate to see the same effect where it's becoming too fast because he's getting tired. With him looking around, partly because I'm just watching him, staring at him like a weirdo instead of letting him do his thing. Like, again, we can still go faster. Sometimes it's not worth going to that high speed initially just so we can get them in the zone and then turn it down. Just kind of monitor them to make sure they don't do anything stupid like jumping off one way or the other because they're that bored. as they're going fast enough, and then it kind of kicks in and they get in the zone, and then they stick it out, and you can just leave it at that speed for a while. Personally, I would say about up to half an hour, 45 minutes might be pushing it. If it's a slower, like we're up to 2.5, for Mr. a 2 mile an hour or 1.8, that's kind of his good long-term cruising speed. We can keep the dog on it for over an hour, a couple of hours. In the past, we've had Ogan on a treadmill for close to 2 hours, and I think for the safety in the treadmill timed out, just stopped and like, why did it stop? Let's keep going. And while we left him on there for 2 hours, we were watching him. We had the TV going, watching a movie or something, or it was right by my desk, so I was able to keep track of him. He was just doing his thing and enjoying it for long periods of time. But you guys all know Ogan, he's a cattle dog. He can do it. Mr.'s high energy, but he's falling back a little bit more. He is kind of looking, but we might be getting to the point where we need to turn it down for him. Now that we've turned it down, he came back up. We'll monitor this for a few more minutes, and if he keeps dropping back like he has and we have to turn it down again, and it happens again and again, well, depending on what your starting point is and how many times you want to do it, you might start to turn it down to 0.5 again, and there you go, you might as well end the session at that point. But I'm watching him, and if he's going to slow down again like he just was, rather than turning it down lower than 2, I would say that's a good time to call it. Like I said, this is the first time with this kind of incline. We've been going for running close to 10 minutes. This video, with everything else going on, obviously much longer so far. And so for that sake, we'll go ahead and end it here. Good boy, mister. Now, once they've been going for a while and they come to a stop, holding the leash, they're secured to the leash. Again, I'll go over that in just a moment. Then make sure we hold them there. Some dogs, give them some food. We want to make the idea of just being here a good thing. They might be in the zone. They're not really acting like they're panicked. They might even look like they're enjoying going on the tread, but as soon as it comes to a stop, oh man, the floor, it felt different again. And it's like it fell from under them, even though it's more solid than it was when it started. And that, you got that same response? Good boy. Yes, mister, it is very solid, isn't it? So getting them to hang out before, yes, we get them off is going to be advised, so that they're not anticipating jumping off as soon as it stops. And sometimes it's not out of panic. They just understand that's the next step. Good boy. So, highly recommend the first several times you have your dog going on the treadmill, as I have this entire time, you are holding that leash so that you can control and guide them if they're going to pull any shenanigans. Eventually, when they start to get used to it, you can have a fixed leash. And I'm doing this on purpose right now, because you can kind of see how this leash is going to be a little too short for him. He barely has, if he just stands there, and that's why I have not turned it on, but he barely has to move before he starts to put pressure. So there's not much wiggle room for him to figure out where he should be if he gets distracted, turns around, if it happened to start to get too fast, the fatigue sets in. So all you got to do, I have this leash hooked up first by looping the handle through and then just looping it through itself a couple of times here. I'm going to undo one of them so that it's just a little bit longer, and you can get creative with a bunch of different types of setup for the leash, because now he's got all of this wiggle room and almost enough that if he were to do something ridiculously stupid, he could flip himself off and kind of hang himself off the front of the treadmill. So we always want to monitor, we always want to be careful. Arguably a little bit shorter of a leash, somewhere in between the two options that I had here, and that's where you can get creative, adding more knots or tying it up in different ways. Every treadmill is going to be a little bit different. You might not have the simple bar. So You just want somewhere in that happy medium. In time, as they get more and more used to the treadmill, you're probably not gonna have to worry that they're gonna jump off the front. And therefore this little extra length, not that big of a deal. So, do you want me to start it up again? This video's gone on long enough, I think. So, there's lots of other little details and nuance that we can go to, but as far as a quick basic rundown, that is teaching the treadmill and getting more reps, more sessions in with Mr. on it, and brand new treadmill, brand new space, brand new context involved with it. So, as always, if you liked what you saw, hit the like button. If you have any questions about anything, drop them down in the comment section down below, and be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with us and everything that we've got going on. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time. All right.
Let's get